they're always looking for donations or for people to help out. And like, it's one of those things where, hey, if you look into the history and do some research of where you are in your area, maybe that's a great way to start coalition building. Maybe there's an initiative that needs to be done, and if you're participating, if you're heading initiatives that I don't know, you feel like the government or any local official isn't working towards going towards addressing the cost of living crisis, yet you're part of the coalition, I guess in a kind of Black Panther-esque way of like helping out the community, maybe people might start listening to you. Like, sure, you're today not able to start the revolution, but if you build prefigurative institutions that in the end, when the time comes, you're able to have that sort of faith within the community, maybe that might be all the difference.
Yeah, having good networks is very important, because like you never know when a scene or an issue can come alive. You just never know. And so yes, having existing networks and groups, connections of people in the political sphere and communities, what have you, in order to be able to organize around an event or a social issue or a political ideal, will help you in the long run, like if the opportunity ever arises. So if there is like kind of a crisis moment, an emergency situation, and you need to act on that. So like, yes, networking and being part of a community is very important. Like while we're on the topic of anarchist stuff, I couldn't help but think of direct action. So like, yes, if you really wanted to make a small difference, next time you're at your local supermarket and they've got an automatic checkout and they've replaced workers for a machine, maybe get the most expensive thing in the trolley and not scan that one. See if you get away with it. That type of that fights the capitalist machine, right? And like, if everyone started doing that, like kind of thing, like it'd eat into their profit margins. They'd have to have a think about whether they continue with automation, or like, they go down the path of hiring people. Maybe they don't hire people to scan your goods anymore, but maybe they'll hire a bunch of security guards that will stand there and at gunpoint watch you, make sure you scan everything. So, a bit of direct action always helps. If you really want to do something and like you're really struggling to think of what you could do that is effectual, without like literally starting some type of vanguard and trying to stage a coup, which is pretty dramatic and like would do the trick, I would say, but like, it's also a big ask. And like you said, for someone that's got a job and has people that depend on them, it's probably unrealistic, let's be honest. So like, every little thing counts, they do say. I think that is a general anarchist philosophy. So don't be shy about getting your hands dirty every now and again at the automated checkout. Like little things. It's the little things. But like, I want to talk about like kind of, when you mention things like, join a community organization or just get involved with a community garden or something like that. Like there is this overwhelming feeling sometimes when you hear that. You're like, yeah, I've heard that one before. Yes, me going down to the community garden and growing some basil, that's going to bring down world capitalism. So like there is obviously that kind of that feeling that you get from that, which is like, yeah, it's nice, but like, is it going to do anything? And like that feeling is justified. Like it does feel like a bit lame, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But like you have to think of it in this sense, okay? Capitalism, and like I'm coming to understand this more and more, centers on the relation. It's a bunch of social relations, okay? If like someone asked you what happened in the Middle Ages in Europe, then you'd probably be like, oh, well, there was a king, and then there was a bunch of lords, and then they all paid homage to the king so they could have their own lands and keep their lands. And every now and again, if the king needed an army, they'd all fight for him and they'd bring their peasants along. And in the meantime, the serfs and the peasants would make all the food for the lords. And there's like a church that like looked over that. If like someone asked you what happened in the Middle Ages, like you'd explain, like you'd start to analyze the social relations. Yeah. There was a king at the top, and there were a majority of people at the bottom, and there were all these layers in between kind of thing. And so like, if you ask someone what capitalism is, they'll be like, oh, you know, it's like when you make money in free market and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, that's the economics of it. All right? People like to make money. But like capitalism really is a social system. It is a network of incredibly complex social relations. And those social relations at their core, in this day and age, especially in later stage capitalism, are fundamentally about exchange relations. So like the way I relate to most people in my life, Flores, is I've never met them, but like they probably make my breakfast for me. So like when I wake up and I put a piece of toast in the toaster, a lot of people that came together to make the toaster. I'll tell you that much for free. And those are my social relations. But all of that is masked by another term that we love to use, like fetishization or fetishism. And so like the monetary value of the toaster marks the fact that it like masks the fact that, you know, there's lots of people that came together to deliver me breakfast in the morning. And so like social relations themselves really boil down to two things, like a primary, let's say, a primary relationship within the capitalist. And everything else refracts off the top of this, okay? It is the social relation that is built around capital and labor. So capital is this thing that realizes itself, that continues to move. It's not money, it's not commodities, but it's this thing that continues to keep itself in motion so it can realize its self-realization, its reproduction, let's say, is to realize itself by continually expanding, and we call that profit. So it keeps moving and growing and stuff like that. And who does that? Who puts capital into motion? A capitalist. And like how do you make profit? Like what's this magical element? It is the fact that capital employs labor power to produce value that wasn't there before, but specifically surplus value. Specifically surplus value. And so, let me just say this. Anything that undermines that core relationship between capital and labor, or the capitalist and laborer, is a attack on capitalism. As little as you think you're doing, or as large as you think you're doing, whether you're going to form one of the largest unions in your country that's going to take down the biggest industrialists and the biggest capitalist organizations in your country, to you saying, no, I'm not going to buy lettuce anymore at the supermarket. I'm going to plant lettuce in my backyard and I'm going to live off all of that lettuce anymore. And you take away that market relation, because all capitalism is, at the end of the day, is a bunch of exchange relations. And if you take away someone's avenue for profiting off that, and like everyone started who had a backyard or had like a balcony or even a window that you could hang out those little planter boxes that hang out the window kind of thing, everyone started growing their lettuce, there would be no lettuce capitalist anymore. Lettuce capitalists, those bastards, lettuce capitalists would cease to exist, because the exchange relations that perpetuate their existence, their reproduction, would disappear. And I know that's a weird example, okay? I know that's a really weird example, but like, if you really want to know what you can do, like anything at any level, as local as you can find it, as international as you can find it, with 1,000 other people or yourself as an individual or a bunch of mates, if you can undermine that relationship, that central relationship between capital and labor somehow, or just undermine the exchange relation somehow, you're doing your bit.